There we go. Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I am coming back at you with another Wargaming and Miniature live stream. We are going to be talking miniatures today in Wargaming Weekly. All right, our Wargaming Weekly this semester is on Wednesdays, so it starts at 11 usually. I considered starting a little early, but I had some shipments that needed to go out, and I decided just to go ahead and take a bath. So perfect timing. And then luckily I got everything done and ready to go. Camera hooked up, stream ready by 11. I even have my wonderful Lipton tea. I have Stash, which I think is the Amazon brand, and they make some good teas. Don't get me wrong, and their tea bags are fairly large, but that doesn't really mean much. Lipton seems to just have a smoother flavor. I don't know. I just like Lipton a lot better. I've also got some Pop-Tarts going on over here. I cooked them before I got started, and so they're probably hard, but hey, I'm going to eat them. And I only have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about today. And not really much, really. I just wanted to get into painting these British Guards that I have right here. This is 4 battalions. Okay, the 4 battalions that are at Quatre Bras. The 2nd of the 3rd, which I think it's the Coldstream Guards. The 2nd of the 1st and the 3rd of the 1st. And then the 2nd of the 2nd, which is, I think, the Scots Guards. I could be wrong about all that. But the main difference between all 4 Guard battalions is their pant colors. The 1st Regiment... right? And this just happens to be the 2nd and 3rd Battalion of the 1st Regiment. But the 1st Regiment had gray pants. And then the 2nd and 3rd Regiments had white pants. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, I got all the paints out that I'm going to need to complete these guys. As you can see, I've already started. I primed them white, okay, to get a good base color for not only the white pants, but for the red, right? Reds don't really go very well on black or gray. So, and I wanted it to be more crimson than like a really dark imperial red. I did not use these reds, but I'm pulling them out as an example. Yeah, I did not want them to look like this. I wanted them to look more like that. So I used flat red mixed in with some apple barrel crimson. Right, so with the mixture like that, I was able to get the red coats on there. Okay. It looked like I missed a little bit of his jacket right there. Okay, well that's no worries at all, because when I'm completely finished, when I'm ready for prime time, I plan to go back over all of these figures and touch up the little spots and nuanced little areas that I might have missed. Also, I'll go back, like his pack and his back has a little white showing, but that's no problem because when I paint that gray coat that is bedroll that's on his back, it'll probably cover that, disguise that. Plus the wash will probably get down into there and disguise that anyway. Okay, so I painted them all red with no concern about getting them on the collars and cuffs because I'm planning to paint those later. But I did not want to like completely cover the collars and cuffs because blue, it covers better, but it does cover pretty good. So wasn't really too concerned about that. Now the back, where the turn back is and all that, not concerned about that. Also, the waistcoat, not too concerned about that. I basically just slapped the red on. And then I decided to do the boots, but then I eventually came back in and did the backpacks and the cartridge boxes. So I did paint all the boots, but then I went back and said, okay, let's do all the backpacks. I did all the backpacks. And then I said, okay, let's do all the cartridge boxes. Did all the cartridge boxes. And I did those, the backpacks and the cartridge boxes, because they wouldn't interfere with any future colors. They were just out of the way. And I used German Tank Crew for all the black. Even though this is more of an extremely dark gray, it's not black, you know, like that is black and that is German Tanker gray. I don't know if you can really tell much of a difference, but exactly, that's the point. Have you ever owned a pair of army boots? Or like, I've owned like, I don't know how many pairs. Black army boots, that is, because I still have my brown Cochranes from Normandy, and I also have my multicam Converse combat boots, but good old 1980s leather combat boots. Oh yeah, plus I've got my Cuirassier boots, which are black. They go up over my knees. But I got a lot of boots. If you wear them for any extended period of time, and I mean a month or more, they're not going to be black. No matter how hard you try to apply coats of kiwi or whatever you're putting on them to make them shine and make them black, that's great. But when you're in the field, you're not applying kiwi. These guys are not applying kiwi to their boots. Now they might have some boot black, and they might be trying to, and they might be working on it. But in the field, your boots tend to lose their luster. And that's why, and that goes for all time periods. So same thing with their backpacks, same thing with their cartridge boxes. Anything that's got a black leathery feel to it. In the field, you get it rained on, you rub it up against a bush, you take your pack off and you throw it on the ground or whatever. It's going to lose quite a bit of its blackness. It's not a racial thing. Oh my gosh. It's going to look more dark gray. And that's why I always use dark grays on black leather. Hell, even black felt or anything that's, you know, colored black. Now, a metallic item that's painted black, which isn't really that many, to be honest. There's not in throughout all the armies. There's really not that many items that are painted black. But if they are, then I might actually break out the black and paint them. Okay, so that's. But I'm keeping this out. I normally, as I use them and they get finished, I put them away because of because I only needed it for that one topic, that one thing. But I need to leave it out and not put it away because I still need to do their Shakos. And I don't want to do their Shakos until after I do flesh. Because I do flesh and I do it rapid, right? I go slap, 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 slap. And I'll get it on their collars and I'll get it on their Shakos. I'll not deliberately, but inevitably. And then I'll go back over and hit their Shakos with the black, and it'll cover all those overpaints. Okay. Plus, I'm using white and gray for pants, right? Got it. I think I'm going to use the same gray for their bedrolls. Okay. I got some fleshy flesh going on right here. And I broke out Guncore Brown to touch up any hair or mustaches. I don't really think these guys have any mustaches, but like their hair and sideburns, right? It's best to do both of these before I do the black, right? Hair, do flesh, hair, and then I can fix it with black. Pants of both shades, plus bedrolls, plus straps, turnbacks. Okay. I can also use the tank crew on bayonets, standard spear tips, swords, sword sheaths. I can put it on all of that because I'm going to come back in later and paint spear tips, swords, and sword sheaths with gold and cold steel. Not gunmetal or silver, but this color cold steel works perfect. It's steel. It's steel. It's steel. It's steel. Okay. I've got Battlefield Brown, which is a little bit lighter. Not much. It's a little bit lighter than Burnt Umber. But I'm going to use this on their standard poles. And that's all I'm using it on, standard poles. I've got Scarlet Red out. Not that I need to use it, but this is basically going to be a touch-up fix color. That's after I wash, actually. Brain Matter Beige is going to be their haversacks, their little bread bags, right? It's going to be Brain Matter Beige, which is almost white. I could probably get away with white, but you can see the difference. And sometimes I go a little all out when it comes to painting. Like I'll paint, even though the color is just slightly different, I'll use it anyway because I feel like I'm supposed to. Okay. This year, 2022, I've been using beige brown. This is a change for me. I'm using beige brown for all muskets and rifles for from Napoleonics all the way up to World War II. So all muskets, all rifles. I use beige brown for their wood furniture. Uh, I got this idea for beige brown from, I think it was Army, no, it was Plastic Soldier, I think. On one of the backs of their, or on multiple backs of their boxes, they've got painting suggestions, and most of them say beige brown for the weapon. And at 28 millimeter, I might not use beige brown. I might use something a little red, more red. Not wood brown. Okay, because here's something called wood brown. And you can see that that is way darker, right? I don't want it to be too dark. But then I've got this other color from Polyes called wood. It's just called wood. And you can see it's way lighter. So who's right, right? Wood brown or wood. I consider that wood to be more of a dried deadfall type wood. And I consider this wood to be closer to an oak or a stained wood, even though it's not, right? So at one point I was using, this might be right. Nope. Yep. Where's my ochre? Hang on. I got some ochre around here somewhere. I might have lost it. Nope. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So at one point I was using ochre, but a different ochre, not this one. And this rucksack tan, there was a color that was very similar to this for like pilums and sarissa and poles like that. It's a little bit darker than the Polyes wood, but it's not completely dark like that. And all you really need to do, I've kind of come to the conclusion that, first of all, not every rifle, like not every Kar 98 has the exact same color. First of all, not every M1 has the exact same color. Some of them are darker, some of them are lighter, based on my experience. So I don't, as a painter out there, I don't think you have a problem using any brown. Really, you can use any brown. Just be consistent. That's what I'm saying. So like, if you've got and you can mix them up in the same unit if you wanted. Or let's say I painted this unit 1 month and I painted this unit another month. And let's say I use the ochre on all these rifles or muskets, and then I switched, which I did. I switched to beige brown, and then I paint these guys with beige brown. That's fine. Don't worry about that. That's actually probably right, because one regiment might have got their weapons issued from a certain manufacturing lot that might have used a different color stain on the wood, or might have one battalion might have had their weapons for a year or longer, and the stain, the wood has faded or something. So yeah, don't stress it. Go with what you got, is what I'm saying. But if you want to be a stickler, you know, like me, I'm starting to use beige brown on all wood for all weapons. Modern rifle, musket type weapons. Thompson submachine guns. There is a friend of mine that has a Thompson, and I do too, actually. I have my Thompson hidden away, actually. My Thompson has a really dark brown, almost like that, actually. And he has a Thompson, and we've compared them, and his brown is more like that. And even though we both have a Thompson submachine gun, his wood furniture is a lot more red than mine. So I don't stress about wood too much on the weapons anymore. But I do use this because I think it looks good. I think it draws your eyes to the weapons and stuff, and I think it kind of, I really like that. Okay, now I've got this green and this blue because all of them need a blue collars and cuffs, right? And the Elite Company, I do believe, there's two Elite companies. They got the Grenadiers, and then they've got the their flankers. And the flankers, I think, have green pom-poms and cords. But I won't start painting pom-poms and cords until the very end, and I will double check to make sure I'm doing everything right. Alright, that was long-winded. But guess what? That's what you're here for. You're here for me to go blah, 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 right? I know you are. Okay. Next color I want to do is flesh. So I'm going to push all this to the side. Normally I'll keep them in order back here of how I want to do them. You know, one at a time. But I've got so many figures here. And the way I manage my painting, it's weird. I'm anal about it. I will slide my models over for every color and then paint from left to right. So as I start painting, I'll start pushing the figures to the left. It just helps me manage what I'm doing. But I'm definitely going to use that color next. Talking with my mouth full. I considered using like a house painting brush for the flesh, but I still can, which is basically this monster right here. He's an O, right? I've got some 2s up here that actually have a really fine point, and I'm trying not to use that. Like that's a 2, and that's just 2's not super fine. But it is bigger than that O, right? I don't want to I don't want to get it too much on the collars and cuffs. I don't mind a little bit on the collars and cuffs, and that's why I'm just going to go ahead and use this giant brush. There is a philosophy out there, which I've adopted a long time ago. Use the largest brush for the task. So don't use a brush that's too big, right? That's going to ruin your paint job. But don't use a tiny brush. Don't use a 20-0 or a 10-0 when you're trying to paint a jacket, right? You're going to use a big brush. And then that's why you need multiple sizes of brushes, really. It's mainly because you want to transfer as much paint from your palette or your palette or your paint bottle to the miniature in the shortest amount of time, basically. So always use the biggest brush because you can get more paint on a bigger brush. You can bring it over. You don't want to have so much paint on your brush that it gets all up in the flume and it ruins your brush. You only want to get like the top 1/3 of your brush touching any paint. And if you only have a little bitty, toothpick of a paintbrush, you'll never get any paint on your figures. Okay. Yeah, this is not my painting glasses. Okay, but before we get started, there is another topic I wanted to touch on. And that was, and you probably know this, over the last couple of videos I talked about it. I talked about my new basing sizes, right? 20 by 30. I have based like half of Quatre Bras on 40 by 15s. And I'm making a change to 20 by 30s. I use Litco almost exclusively for my bases. Okay, I've also keep bases in tubs. I've got these little Plano fishing tackle kind of things. You got like little places to store stuff. And I've got 3 of them sitting on the table right there with different size bases in each one of the little compartments. Except for like my 15 by 40s. I've got a whole top row of that. I've got 40 by 30 for artillery. Got like a whole second row of that. Then I got one of the bigger compartments has my limber bases because those suckers are giant. But I also have I got my Flames of War bases in there for and these are wooden Flames of War bases for doing either Flames of War basing or battle group primarily. But I also have like 20 by 20s. I got 30 by 30s, 40 by 40s. I've got a bunch of round bases as well for generals and for individual troops, because sometimes I will put like a bolt action figure on a round base, like it's supposed to be, that are 1 inches. And sometimes I'll use wood, get over it, right? Because I'm buying like an Old Glory model, which has this, but they don't come with round bases, so I got to get round bases somewhere. Now I do have a bunch of leftover actual Warlord Games bases, but I don't know what it is. I'm a hoarder. I think I want to hold on to those for emergencies, or whatever. But what I'm basically trying to say is I got a ton of different sizes. I got 30 by 60s. I got 20 by 60s. I got 60 by 30s. I got a ton, 60 by 80s. Those were my old 28 millimeter artillery bases. And then I've got some base, I don't remember exactly how big it is, but I think it's like 4 by 5. It's a giant base that I used for campsites for the old Field of Glory days or whatever. I've got bases coming out of my ass. Okay. So I said, okay, let's see what kind of 20 by 30s I've got. I went into my tubby, my little Plano tackle box thing. I opened it up. I looked through there. I said, oh, I got about 20 or 30 of these things. Okay, that's good. That'll be about 3 or 4 battalions maybe. And I was like, okay, so no problem. I came straight over to the computer, got onto Litco, and I said, I need to order some frickin' 20 by 30s. Boom. And they've got this free shipping. I think I'm going to get the order in tomorrow, actually. I think I ordered them last Thursday, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. It didn't take that long. But to get free shipping, you have to meet a certain amount. I think it's low. I think it's like $100 to get free shipping. So I went in there and I said, okay, well, I only need, how many bases do I need? I went through all of Quattro Bra. And I look, and that counts all the ones I have to rebase. So I said, okay, all of Quattro Bra, I'm going to need about 250 bases, something like that. Not unusual, well, maybe more than that. Maybe 300. Because I need to do the British, I need to do Allies, I need to do the French. Okay, I'm hearing someone outside. My wife might be home early. It's only 11:30, so might be my son, because he works in the morning usually. Keep my eyes on the door over there. It's wide open. But so I went through and I figured out how many bases I needed, and then I put that order in. But when I put that order in, it wasn't anywhere near free shipping, right? And I was like, well, if I was going to do Waterloo, I'm going to need to have a lot more. So I said, let me just, instead of like 300, let me order like 500 or 600. Still not enough. I said, okay, I'm probably going to need some more general bases. Let's order a few of those. I'm going to need more artillery bases. Actually, I don't. I've got tons of artillery bases. I don't know what I ordered. But basically, I just filled it up to get to the free shipping, knowing that it was going to be excessive, and that it was going to be usable for future projects like my Prussians or my British or French or Allies for Waterloo. So, and I think I even ordered some more cavalry bases. I hope I did, because I'm getting low on those. And then this is the reason why I'm getting to that. That should be coming into like tomorrow. So I have a box of bases. How was your class today? How was your class?
Nobody showed up.
Oh.
Hung around till 10. And
Is that 2 weeks in a row?
Yep.
Well, you think they might cancel the class?
Oh, no, they won't cancel.
Oh, okay.
At least I get paid for it.
Yeah, okay.
They just let it, the students not show up.
Because the students had to pay for the class, right?
Yeah.
That's just crazy to me. People paying for classes and then not showing up. Okay, so I thought I was going to need these bases. And then just a couple of days ago, before I started these guys, I remembered that I've got a box full of what are they called? Wargames accessories bases. Those bases are made out of metal, and I got a variety of different metal bases that I got when I was playing Micro Armor, and but I also got them for like Napoleonics or World War II or whatever. I basically have a selection, very small selection, of these metal bases. And I was thinking to myself, maybe I've got some metal bases in there, which I don't want to use because they're way too thin. They're like, they're wafer thin, right? And, but they're metal, they're sturdy, they're already owned, that kind of stuff. I've already owned them. So I went and checked, I pulled that box out, which is right next to the same Plano boxes. It's just sitting there. So I opened it, and lo and behold, those were in that box. 3 bags, 100 count, 20 by 30s. I didn't need to place an order at all. I didn't need any order. This is going to get me through Quatre Bras. That other order was going to get me through Quatre Bras and Waterloo, most likely. So what I'm probably going to do is, because I don't know how many of these bags I'm going to have available. Once I get everything in, I'm going to go through, I've thought about this. I'm going to go through those metal bases. I'm going to go through all my other bases that I know I will probably never ever use. And I think I'll get some Ziplocs, put them in there. I'm going to put them on the store. So look for some Litco or some Wargames accessories, metal bases in the future. Wow. Okay. So what does that tell me? What does this tell me? What does it tell you? It tells me I thought about this in the past strong enough for me to order 300 bases. So I've thought about this base size, because these weren't for Napoleon's battles. These are not 20 by 25s. These are 20 by 30s. Specifically the ones I targeted for the base scale change. That tells me that was always an option. That was probably my primary option, because the 15 by 40s, I'm using those, or was using those, because of my ancient armies. My ancient armies are on 40 by 15s, the heavy infantry anyway. And so that's why I had a bunch of those. And I think I'm just messing up. So I decided that my mistake is going to be my store's benefit. I'm going to turn them around, recoup some of my cost. I think I want to keep a bunch, because I don't really know how many bases I'm going to need for the Prussians, the French Guard, the LeBeau's division, and all those, like the middle guard, the old guard, the young guard. I'm going to need, LeBeau, I think he's 4th Corps. But there's still a third, I don't know if there is a 3rd Corps. But there's like a 6th Corps. There's all these weird divisions. I call them weird because I never really use them. But like the 24th Infantry Division, stuff like that. So there's a lot of units that I'm going to need to do, so I might keep them, but I'm probably going to spend an evening going through all the different units that I plan to field, and then figure out how many bases that is, and then see if I have that many bases. And if I do anything over that, I'll probably sell. And then if I ever decide to do like Austrians or Russians or Spanish or Portuguese or whatever, then I can always get more bases. But I am going to target Waterloo first, and that's probably going to take another 2 years after Quatre Bras. So, well, maybe 3, because after Quatre Bras, I'm going to probably go to some American War of Independence, or some ancient armies like Romans or Carthaginians or something, Macedonians. Now, there won't be as many figures as with any of those armies as opposed to my Napoleonics. But, yeah. Alright, so we're moving into another phase of this video where I'm not going to talk that much, guys. I don't like painting and talking at the same time. My mind can't handle it. Now, if you guys want to chit chat or pop something in the chat or whatever, I would be appreciative. Plus, some of this might be off camera. I don't know how I'm going to. I'm not. That's too big. Okay. Yep, that'll work. I started painting this guy's hand, and then I just quickly remembered that he should have a glove on so he's not going to get flesh. So I'm only painting their faces on the standard bearer and the officers. Now, if this looks like a lot of figures, it is. It's a enormous number of figures, and I am doing my best not to get overwhelmed and just go steady, painting 1 or 2 colors a day, you know, just to stay motivated. That's my plan. When there's this many figures, it can tend to take a long time. So we started at about 15 till. So what we'll do is when I get done with flesh, we'll see how long it took me. So these guards battalions that I'm painting are large battalions. So there's 8 bases per battalion. So what is that, 32 miniatures? Am I doing my math right? 8 times 4? Yeah, 32 times 4 battalions is 128, right? Am I doing my math right? So let's just say over 120 miniatures are on the table right now. And I consider just doing I consider just doing 2 battalions at a time. But then I said, nah, let's get them all done at the same time. Why not? It won't be too hard. It's not hard. It's just time consuming because you have so many to do. You'll also notice that I put the unit numbers on the bases. I only did that to remind me which ones have white pants and which ones have the gray pants. Because other than that, the uniforms are all exactly the same. There's no real need to concern myself. I could have just put white or gray on the stick. Now I notice right now I'm not just slapping the flesh on. I'm actually trying to stay within the numbers, and I don't need to do that. I'm slowing myself down unnecessarily. So I just gonna change the pace. I'm gonna start slapping. Because like if I get it on the drum, or if I get it on the rifle, or if I get it on whatever, it doesn't matter because I haven't painted those items yet. Okay, I found that hands on muskets are the hardest to paint, mainly because like half of the hand is on the back side of the musket. So you got to locate the front side of the hand based on where the back side was. Now, face, again, I can get it on the collars and I can get it on the shako because those haven't been painted yet. Okay, now some of you with a good memory or have been watching a while and maybe have a good memory know that I painted all the flanker bases for these guard units already. So if I really wanted to, I could have skipped 4 bases were 16 figures for these 2 battalions. But I felt that they did look a little different because they come out of a different bag. They came out of just a British light, or not even a light, British flanker bag. Where all these figures came out of the British Guard bags. Now, almost all of the British, let me back that up. Almost all of the Old Glory infantry bags come with 48 models, enough to make 2 24-figure battalions. Now, because these were large battalions, I couldn't make 2 battalions worth out of one bag. So when I ordered them, I ordered a bag per battalion. And I'll tell you right now, that was too many. Because with 3 bags, I did all of this. With a little extra, actually. I've got a few extra figures. Mostly command, mostly standards and drummers. So I did not open that 4th bag. I'm going to sell it. Old Glory, British Guards. You get 48 models. So if you're interested in making 2 24-figure battalions, you could. Or you can add to your collection, or you could make a large battalion. Hell, you could make a large battalion with 48 models if that's how you normally base your guys. Or if you're planning on doing 3 large battalions like myself, well, that'll get you started. Okay, what am I not painting? Ah, the hand is in a different spot on this figure. So on one of the figures, one of the drummers, the hand is resting on the side of the drum. But on that, he's gripping the top of the rim of the drum. Yeah, there's about 3 drummer poses. I tried to mix them up a little bit by battalion, so that all the I try to mix all the figures up so there's not the same pose Now, they didn't include any pikemen. You know how the British have NCOs that carry these pikes? But they did include an NCO with his hand over his mouth where he's yelling. And he's holding his weapon kind of down low around his waist. Okay, I think I'm starting to miss stuff, so I need to focus. You probably never see what I'm painting right now. There's a gap between the musket, the shako, his hand, and in that gap there's a little bit of his face. Now these old glory models have a slight downside for the guard, in that they're all pretty much in a firing position. Almost every one of them. Which is good if you're doing like a firing line or skirmishers or whatever. Luckily, they give me about half kneeling and half standing. So, on the base, I plan to put the kneeling in front of the standing. If that makes sense. It will once they're done. The thin red line. So I did a little research on march columns the other day. And I learned that that's not really a thing. All armies would form columns, right? That is a thing. But the width of because I was researching the width of a march column, basically. And there's no such thing as a march column of march or whatever. But there are different widths to columns. And some widths are used when on a road or when, you want to get somewhere really fast. But it wasn't called a march column. It was just called a column by whatever. They had column by companies, column by platoons, column by sections. They even had column by battalions. And I also learned that this I kind of was a little confused about, so I learned this, that the company and the platoon are not related to each other. You know, like I was in the U.S. Army, right, in the 80s and the 90s. And a platoon was part of a company, right, in the U.S. Army. So, generally speaking, a platoon would be approximately 30 men, right? And then 2 or more platoons would form a company. And then 2 or more companies would form a battalion. And then it goes up like that, right? You got battalions, and then you got regiments and divisions, etc., etc. But that's not the way it was during the Napoleonic period. It took me a second to really wrap my head around that. During the Napoleonic era, there was 2 forms of organization. There was the financial organization, and then there was the combat deployment not formation, but like unit. So like a French platoon was like 100 men, and that was what was used in combat. But a company was also approximately that same size, and that's how they got paid. So the company and the platoon title for a group of men could be used interchangeably. It's just you were talking about if you use the word company, everybody knew you were talking about their financial organization and how they were reimbursed, etc., how they got their coin from the crown. But when you talk about in combat, which is really what we need to be talking about, there was no company. It was section, platoon, division, right? And the division was kind of like 2 platoons. It's very confusing. So the march column, or I should say the column, you'll hear column by divisions or column by company. or column by platoon. Well, the British use column by company, but column by section would be your march column. Because a section is about, it's about 15 men or something like that. Now, they wouldn't be 15 men across. It'd probably be more like 6. They might call that column by file. So to prevent any confusion in my rules, I'm going to have to standardize what I call a platoon, what I call a company, or what I call a division or a corps or whatever. And it could be different in reality based on each nation. But because there are so many different ways to do it, I'm just going to have to standardize it for the rules so that all the players will know what the rules are talking about. Because I don't want to have to say, you know, the British do it this way, the French do it this way, and the Prussians do it this way. And the variations are like this and like that. No, I don't want this to be a history document. Because a base is a base is a base is a base. And that's what I want it to be. I don't want it to be some kind of math lesson or well, you're going to learn history on your own, but I don't want the rules to be a history lesson. But I will have a little disclaimer in there that says all of this information, like the French call this this, and the British call this this, and the Prussians don't even use that system. They use a completely different system, and the Brunswickers use this, and that'll be in there. But then in that same breath, I'm going to say, but the rules, because there's so many different ways to do it, have standardized it, and we're going to use this method here, and then I'll explain it. So I'll say, and going forward in the rules, this is what I'm referring to. So I can put it in one spot. People will understand that, and I already was planning on doing something like that anyway. People understand that yes, there are differences, but the rules have made it more uniform. So if I'm playing a Prussian army and you're playing a Portuguese army, not that that's ever going to happen, but if I say this company does this, then you as a Portuguese player or a Prussian player will know what I'm talking about. And there won't be any confusion. That's the plan, right? Okay. Now, having said that, there's really only going to be 4 formations. Line, column, march column, and square. Because one nation's one nation's column might look a little different than another nation's column, and the number of sections or platoons might be different. It's still a column. And another thing, this is where I'm trying to lean into this part of it. The player isn't in command of a battalion. I say this a lot. The player is not the battalion commander. You don't get to decide as a player if a battalion deploys skirmishers. You don't get to decide what type of column the battalion is forming. There is a column formation. You as the player, you are playing the corps commander, and you are issuing orders to your divisions, who are in turn issuing orders to their brigades, who are then in turn issuing orders to the battalion commander, who in turn is issuing orders to his companies, and those companies would form skirmish lines and whatever, and that would be up to the battalion commander, right? Battalion commander might say, 3rd company deploy skirmish formation or whatever, right? The division commander didn't tell him to do that. He might have. Division commander might have said, hey, I want you to deploy skirmishers. But he's going to leave that up to the battalion commander to conduct those orders and to arrange his companies in whatever formation the battalion commander wants, which, of course, everybody's going to be taking orders from above. But the corps commander, the player, the corps commander does not say, hey, 1st Battalion of the 61st, I want you to deploy skirmishers. You know how much micromanaging that would be for the corps commander? He's more concerned about troop movements and placements of his troops than he is about what formation they're in. He's got brigade commanders. He's got division commanders to deal with that. He might say something like, 1st Division, you know, be prepared to receive a charge from the cavalry on your left flank. And then it would be up to the division to put his brigades in the right placement. And then it would be up to the brigades to make sure their battalions are in the right formation. That's the whole gist of my rules, is that you don't make those small decisions. I don't know how I got onto that topic when I was talking about the 4 formations, counting square. As a player, you obviously have to deploy your miniatures on the table in an acceptable manner that everyone at the table knows what you're doing, or what those units are doing. There's a lot of hair on these guards' necks. Which is good, because I'm going to paint them, but it's more than most of the other British units. Was that a thing? Did the guards grow out their hair? I doubt it. I think it's just because his head is tilted forward and you can actually see the back of his neck. So as a player on the table, I want you to be able to form a line, right? Using your miniatures, right? You form a line, form a column. You form a column of march, or a march column. Form a square. And this is using your miniatures. Now, what is actually going on is out of your command. The company placement, the actual size of the column, the is it a column of companies? Is it a column of platoons? Or is it whatever it is? That's irrelevant. That's not something the corps commander needs to know. He just needs to know that he's got columns. So I'm hearing my stomach making noises. So there's going to be one column miniature formation, but it will represent a larger variety of different types of columns to be determined by the battalion commander, not the player. Okay, now this is how I justify a variable die roll. So, like, let's say, okay, you can hear those planes? That's probably the 101st. I understand that they are in Europe right now, but I'm sure they have troops coming and going on the regular. Because I hear these jets flying over weekly. I'm not going to say daily because that's not true. Probably weekly. So they probably have like a weekly supply, weekly troops coming back, troops going in. Okay, enough of that. So let's say I've got a column and I'm slamming into another unit's line, right? We roll dice, we have modifiers, we get a result. Okay, now that whole process of rolling dice, adding modifiers, and getting a result, if you can think about this, is the battalion commander, not you the player, it's the battalion commander putting them in the proper formation to get them to do what they're doing. So if you roll a 10, that battalion commander was smart enough to have them in column of companies instead of a column of platoons. Or if you roll a 1, maybe he went in with his column being too narrow or something, or too tight, like the company in the back was pushing up against the company in the front. More than just a surge. Yeah, so the dice represent your subordinates making good decisions. You as a player have no control over the dice, which actually means you have no control over that battalion and how it fights. And that's basically the general gist of the game. You're the corps commander. You put figures in formations, you roll dice, the results tell you what happened. But isn't that the name of like every miniature game in the world? It's just, I don't think I've ever heard it worded like that, where you think you're rolling for those individual attacks or combats, like I'm shooting here, I'm dropping a bomb there. No, you're not. You're in command. You're not doing any shooting. You're the platoon commander. You don't shoot your soldiers' rifles. Okay, you can see how long this is taking. I finished the first two, well, no, I didn't, but I'm very close to finishing the first 2 battalions. Just flesh. There's 2 parts of painting Napoleonic miniatures that I find to be the most time consuming. And it's not flesh. It is collars and cuffs, because by the time I start painting collars and cuffs, the figures are already pretty close to being finished. So I have to be careful where I put the paint. And the straps. You know, the cross straps in the front, the shoulder straps for the backpacks, the straps for your cartridge box, canteens, haversacks, luckily a lot of those overlap, which speeds the process up. Yeah. I mean, they're Shako cords, right? They would be, I would consider them to be more kind of like straps, but I find them, I can paint those quickly. They might be a little, like I have to focus and I might consider them a little more difficult to paint, but difficulty and time consuming are not the same thing. I normally consider flesh to be not difficult and not time consuming. Normally. But when you got over 120 models, I think anything can become time consuming. Okay, my initial plan today was to play a computer game called The Troop. I've had The Troop now probably for over a year. I played it a number of times. About 8 or 9 different scenarios that I played. Probably 2 or 3 times per those 8 scenarios. But then I stopped. It was a conscious decision to stop playing it because I wanted to live stream it, and I wanted like the enjoyment of playing a scenario for the first time on a live stream. So I hadn't played it in almost a year now. And in that time, they've released new units, new maps, new scenarios, and a new game mode, which is kind of like a build your own mission kind of thing. So I was thinking to myself, this is really going to benefit any kind of live stream situation that I do with the troop. For those of you that don't know what the troop is, it's a turn-based hex game. It's World War II, Canadians, and British. I think it's the Commonwealth. D-Day and after. Right? And so it's played at about the platoon level. Maybe company level. I don't know. I would have to really evaluate it, but you move these teams and tanks and jeeps, and a team of rifles might be 4 or 5 riflemen. You know, one of them might be a submachine gunner, one of them might be a machine gunner, and basically just like any squad. But just imagine breaking it up into smaller chunks. Moving these squads or whatever, which the individual men are animated. So, like when you move this team from one hex to another, you would see all four of the guys, you know, grab their belongings and run across to the next hex. When they shoot, you know, they all individually shoot. I'm sure there's math or a table in the background. So it reminded me of Squad Leader. You remember the old Squad Leader game? It really reminds me of Squad Leader. Hex-based movement, you know, when you shoot, you roll dice, and, well, you don't roll the dice, the computer does. And you get your results and all that jazz. So I was planning on playing a couple of hours of that today. But then I I planned that a few days ago. And then I started painting these British. And I'm like, I want to get rid, or I want to make sure these British get done sometime soon. So I decided to take advantage of you and paint a little bit of them on stream. I still have my D&D game tonight. We play D&D every Wednesday night, 7 Central, for about 4 hours. And it's in a Greek mythology campaign going on right now. So what I'm trying to say is I can't paint miniatures during my D&D game. Right? And normally for the store and for my personal collection and everything else, I paint from about noon to 6 approximately. So that's my part of my painting schedule. And I do that pretty much almost every day. 12 to 6. Sometimes not. Sometimes I'll do something different. Build terrain or whatever. And then from 6 to 9 or so, usually we have dinner, spend some time with my wife, watch some reality TV shows. I noticed that Barbarians, the second season, is out. It feels different than the first season. But I've only watched like the first episode, so. And then around 9 or so, I will paint a little bit more. Maybe till 10 or 11. So I usually get about 8 hours of painting in a day, approximately. And then after, like around 11 o'clock, I'll put everything down, I'll let my eyes rest. I'll let my wrists rest. I will stretch a little bit. Usually get a snack. And then I'll sit down and I'll play for myself a computer game for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4, just depending on the game. I have been known to play computer games from midnight to about 6 in the morning. I try not to do that, but sometimes it happens. And I was kind of wanting to share the troop with you guys. But I think I'm going to share that with you live this weekend. I'm going to go live this weekend for a few hours showing off the troop. And then from there, I think I'll do recorded sessions where I upload videos weekly or something like that for each mission. You know, like I'll perform each mission. The troop is fun. I like it. It's pre-release or it's still in development. Some things change. So a bunch of stuff have changed since the last time I played. Yeah, it's been almost an hour and I haven't done all of this. I was also holding off of rebasing all my units because I didn't think I had enough bases. I knew I was going to have to get some more bases. To rebase them, and so I was planning on just painting a unit or two like these and then putting them on the 20 or so bases that I have. But then I discovered that I already had 300 of these bases, so that shot that plan in the foot. So at any time I might take a battalion or two and take an evening to relax and just rebase. The downside, it's rebasing is just overall the downside, but I'm going to have to use more texture paste and flock, but I've decided to switch which flock I'm using, so that's an advantage. In that all the units will be using the new flocking. And I haven't put any stones, or I should say I haven't put very many stones in the infantry flock. And I think I'm going to keep it that way. I don't think I want to use stones scattered about a 15 millimeter base. Man, this is hard coming up with things to talk about while I'm painting, so there's no dead air. Yeah, I was saying to myself that I wanted to go ahead and knock out those 4 limbers of the 2 Brunswick and 2 Dutch Belgians. And then I just talked myself out of it. I talked myself into doing these guards. At the pace that I'm painting these, it's probably going to take me another 4 days. Maybe not, because some of these colors are just... Okay, 3 days. 2 of those will be painting, and then 1 of them will be basing and flocking and all that stuff. I got a ton of fantasy figures. And sci-fi, actually. I've got some Gates of Antares and stuff like that. I really need to put some effort into those guys and just post them. There was a time when I thought I was going to want to play Gates of Antares, but it's got a really cool world and everything, but when I heard Warlord was changing the rules and then changing the army lists and stuff like that, it was good, they were in development for basically a version 2 of it. I just stopped. It basically broke my back. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to invest a ton of money in a game that's about to change in a year. Right? Now, I'm sure that a lot of my stuff will still be usable, but the question is, will I want to? I don't know, because I don't know what the new rules will be, or I don't know what the new capabilities will be. And I hate saying that, but then again, because I like to pick armies based on feeling and not based on facts. Same thing with World War II. Like World War II, I'll pick this or that just because I think it looks cool. But then I will also only pick things that are involved in certain scenarios. It'll not be a game mechanics choice. Right? But when it comes to a sci-fi game, or even a fantasy game, you don't really have historical documents to draw from to tell you, this scenario or that scenario. I mean, they do have campaigns and stuff, but and I did get 2 of those campaign books, but as soon as I heard the rule change and some books are out of print and blah blah blah, I just basically was like, never mind. I've got so many armies, so many games that I'm playing right now. I didn't really need to get into another sci-fi game. Especially one that was planning on changing. I tried Warlords of Erewhon. It's okay. It's nothing to write home about. But then again, it is just a fantasy game. But then I tried Oathmark, and I think Oathmark is a good game. I think it's very basic, right, when it comes to the rules. But then it's extremely detailed when it comes to the history of the world and the campaign game that they have pre-written into the rules. the army books. You know, it reminded me of like old 1980s Warhammer. Not this new Age of Sigmar BS. I could go on for days about my relationship with Games Workshop. Because, as you know, I used to own a store, and a long time ago, and sold it about 20 years ago. And it's really been that long. Yeah, I guess so. And at that time, they were trying to tell me how to display their product in my store. They wanted to dictate, you know, if and what I could buy and where it had to be displayed in the store. And they actually, this is what broke the camel's back. I never lied to them about where I keep saying deployed, but where I set it up. But I did say, you know, I'm a small store, I don't have a lot of space or whatever, and I have a whole wall dedicated to you guys. Because it's more convenient to put all your figures, Warhammer Fantasy 40K, what was the other one like? The War Master and Epic and the Gothic and the sailing one, the fantasy sailing game. I can't remember what that one's called. War Seas, Blood Seas or something. I don't remember. But I had that all deployed on the wall. Blister packs and all that stuff. And they told me they wanted me to have a rack right in front of my front door. It needed to be a spinner rack. It needed to have the new releases on it, or specific product. And all that was a good idea. And I don't mind them suggesting that. As, you know, hey, this is the best way to sell it, or this is what we think you should do. Okay, I'm okay with that. But when they say you have to set it up here because you could lose your ability to buy from us if you don't. You know, this is a requirement to continue being a customer. I was like, I can't do that. I don't have a spinner rack. I don't have the room up front. Actually, that's where I kept my Reaper miniatures. I had a spinner rack, right? But I used all my Reaper miniatures because at the time Reaper was extremely good priced. You know, it was like $2 a figure, sometimes less. And the models were good. They were metal still, and they weren't this bone crap that they make now. They were metal. And I was like, you know, this is the way it's got to be for me. And they were like, okay. And then one day, this is the actual thing that broke my back. A representative from their company shows up at my store, which is great. I'll shake hands, kiss babies, whatever. But he was not there to meet me. He was there to see where his product placement was. And when I didn't have a spinner rack up front with their product on it, because I had Reaper, he said my discount changed. Right? Because they gave like a certain discount, like a 45% off or whatever. And then it changed to like 35% off. Because of the placement of their miniatures in my store. I was like, what the hell? I'm not going to carry your stuff anymore. You guys are a bunch of pee holes. You know, at the time, everybody joked and said, you know, they were the evil empire and stuff. But now I had actually experienced it. I was like, damn, you guys are the evil empire. But, like Bitcoin, they were the first in, best dressed. Kind of like PayPal is. It's not the best. I mean, okay, hold on. It's not the best option, but it is the most convenient, right? I had a ton of customers that I built up for them that had Warhammer armies, either 40K or fantasy. We played Warhammer or fantasy tournaments in the store. You know, I had promotions and all that. I supported those games mainly because it helped me sell them. But that's my responsibility to sell the miniatures, not theirs. Now, Warlord Games, when I got my new rep, he reminded me of a Games Workshop rep, right? Pressure sales. Sell this. This is the army box you want. You know, this is selling great. You need to have it in your store. No, my man. I do not. I don't want to carry that crap. Like Cruel Seas. I don't want that. What's the other one? The sailing one. You got Cruel Seas, which is the sailing, or is that the World War II one? Either one. I don't want either one of those. Navy games. I tried the aircraft game. I bought it. I played it a few times, and I realized I don't want to sell that in my store. First of all, I can't focus on 15 different games or genres, let's say. 15 different games, no problem. But not when every one of them is a different genre. If there's 15 different Napoleonics games, Okay, great, because Napoleonic figures are easily used for any game. You know, you might play Chef de Battalion, I might play Napoleon's Battles, whatever. But the figures can be used with both. So, but when it comes to specific games like Epic, right? Epic is the Warlord Games Epic is unique. You can only play that game with those figures. Okay, we're down to the last 3 popsicle sticks. Now you'll notice these popsicle sticks have 6 figures on each one, not 4. That was just for to save space. Nothing real significant about that other than just saving space. Now a couple of these have 4s. Those are the command stand figures. But the reason why that is, why they have 4 and not 6, is because it didn't round out. 32 doesn't round by 6 very well. 30 does, but then there would be 2 extra figures. So I just broke down all the command figures. The standards, the officers, the drummers on the 2 stands. Okay, so now I've got another dilemma. With the guard, not so much, but with a 6-stand battalion, where am I going to put the standards? Right? If there's 1 standard, no big deal. We just put it on a base with an officer and a drummer and move on. But if you've got 2 standards, like a regimental color and a nationality color, like maybe the Prussians or the British or someone, am I going to put both standards on the same base? I don't think so. I started doing this with black powder on the square 40 by 40s with 4 figures per base. These are basically that. It's just that they're a little bit deeper. So I think I could put a standard on one base with an officer and a drummer, and a standard on an adjacent base, possibly with an officer and a drummer, so that when the 2 bases are sitting side by side on the table, it looks like one large group of officers. Regimental colors, I thought that I might put them in the 2nd rank, and then the King's color on the 1st rank, and then offset them. Or I might just put them all in the front rank. I don't know. I'll have to see how it looks best. Nope, 3-1. That's this right there. All right, we're on the final stretch here with the flesh. And then I'm going to see how long it took me to do it. And I'm going to round a little bit. And I don't really consider the flesh finished, to be honest, until I do the hair. But the hair is going to be really quick. It's just going to be boop, 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 boop. But that's not part of this time measurement. I'm actually measuring the actual flesh. The Midland flesh. Now, even though this is Midland, it's not really Midland flesh. I used Midland flesh quite a bit, and when it started getting low, I added a little Vallejo paint in there and some water and some Liquitex mixing medium. I put a lot of that in there and basically not refilled, but refilled the Midland. I made a color using my various flesh colors. I made a color that I wanted. Basically, I mixed and choosed and so basically that's a homemade color. But the base was Midland flesh. And then I think I went with mostly flat flesh. I don't think I used any of the highlight. There is basic flesh tone. There's also barbarian flesh, and barbarian flesh I feel to be just a little bit too dark. It's too like rustic red. Yeah, my game tonight, I put some thought into it. Actually, quite a bit of thought. There is at the end of our last session, I recommended to them that if they wanted to, which I was kind of hoping they would, but nobody did, talk amongst themselves in the Discord chat as if they were at the campsite, organizing and planning on how they were going to deal with this unbelievably powerful orc war chief, and you know, nobody threw out any ideas. Nobody started a conversation or engaged in a conversation. So that didn't help. So, because what I was going to do was eavesdrop in on them, obviously, read their comments, and see what their plans were. And interject what Ajax might think. I mean, I don't know why they think he's an ally, because he's not. He's an enemy of theirs. But an enemy of my enemy is my friend is kind of what the deal is. Because he wants to kill the war chief. And because he wants to kill the war chief, they consider him a friend. Which I'm going to tell you right now, he is not their friend. But it's one of those, we'll work together until the war chief dies. And then I'm your enemy again. Okay, we got some blending going on in the kitchen. I was thinking about muting you. Okay, that was loud. So I thought about how I'm going to deal with this, but I also thought about how is the orc war chief going to react to what just happened in his little war camp. So yeah, I put a little thought into like all of that, which I had already planned to do all this anyway. So the players not communicating with each other wasn't going to influence what I was going to do. Hopefully they didn't think that by coming up with a plan in Discord, I was going to try to counter it. And, you know, they're doing the operational security thing where they don't discuss their plan in the open, allowing the DM to take advantage of them. I'm not that kind of DM. I don't... my goal is not to defeat the players. That's not That doesn't even come across my... That doesn't even come across my desk. You know, I don't even think that like that. I got a story, I'm trying to tell it, and I want the players to enjoy it. Alright, well, that's one of the reasons why I try to film this show when there's nobody in the house. Because that's just unprofessional. Okay, so we've got all the flesh. Okay, it took about an hour and a half. And because it's after 1 o'clock, let's just go ahead and end the show here. And look forward to this weekend. I probably will go live again this weekend. I guess I need to start with the hair, but we're not going to show you that on camera. I will see you in the next video.